For centuries, a war has been waged in the shadows by two armies born of incredible powers. And yet, it is said there lives a warrior with the ability to tip the balance between good and evil. But first, she must choose.
We got ourselves a new offer.
Uncle, you want to get the target?
Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University. I am your professor, Mario Rivera, and joining me is the marvelous doctoral student, Sly Cone MC, who has a bachelor's in the MCU, a master's in the multiverse, and is going for their dissertation in Marvel Studies. Sly, how are you doing?
I am so excited to be here with you today for this very special episode of Elektra, joined by the one and only JJ. JJ, welcome to the show.
Just appears.
Rising from the smoke and the neon lights flashing. And,
the more thing you say, the more things I gotta add.
Hi, I'm JJ, also known as JJ Watch, on TikTok and Twitter. It's great to be here. Love MCU. Love being a student. You know, I'm taking some classes, putting in my time, going for the bachelor's.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
What's a little bit of your history already with MCU?
Yes, my history with the MCU. I have been kind of making some MCU content for a while on TikTok. I grew up on all the movies, you know, the X-Men movies, and the when Iron Man first started, I went and saw it in theaters, and then there was the big family trip to Avengers, and so it's become like a big thing in my family to like all keep up with the MCU together and text each other about it. And when Disney Plus dropped and all the Marvel stuff dropped, it was like everyone was trying to rush to like watch it all really fast. I think the record in my family was like 9 days to watch it all at the time where it was, and it was like 20-something movies. So
that's impressive.
Big part. But yeah, I love making MCU content. I've been doing it for a little bit now, but really starting to get full force into it soon.
Fantastic. I'm very excited to have you here because for the first time, I am not the expert in this movie because I've never seen this movie until last night. And Sly is, as well, from a record, has not seen Daredevil before this show and now has seen Elektra. But what I heard is you are actually a big fan of this film. And I'm very glad to have your expertise in this. So we'll definitely go through it as we go.
Happy to be here. This is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and mostly because of Jennifer Garner. I am a huge,
that is fair,
die-hard Jennifer Garner fan, and so I definitely grew up on this movie in a way because one of my things that I watched as a kid was Alias, which is her television show in the early 2000s. And this came out during that run in 2005. And so that was something that we saw, and I went and saw, and I watched whenever it was on TV, and we bought the DVD, and I was like, this was a movie that was very important to my upbringing.
Well, that is awesome. Speaking of upbringing, let's talk a little bit about history. All right, we're going to go and says, of course, we are entering history class. We are talking about Elektra, which is the 2005 standalone film. It is a sequel, semi-sequel to Daredevil. It is directed by Rob Bowen, who last directed Reign of Fire, which, if you've not seen Reign of Fire, that movie's batshit crazy. It stars Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, Gerard Butler, and dragons, and it takes place in modern day dystopian world, and there's a scene where they're teaching these kids the story of Star Wars. It's fantastic. Please check it out. Matthew McConaughey's bald and has an axe. Anyways, he also made this movie, which I'm totally opposite, but that's fine. That is fine. Written by Zach Penn, who is responsible through a lot of few things. He's done some writing on some previous movies, as well as actually Ghost Rider. He's going to be directing the Ghost Rider movie, if I'm not mistaken, the first one. Stuart Zimmerman, and M. Raven Metzner, I believe is his name. The credits also included the director of Daredevil and also Frank Miller, who's sort of a creator and aspect of all these characters. And of course, it is one of a Fox movie. It is a Fox Studios movie, which this is the movie that got them to lose the rights to Daredevil and Elektra. So there's that. This movie stars, as you said, Jennifer Gardner, Will Young Lee, Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa, who I love as here's my cat. Who I love as Shang Tsung on the Mortal Kombat movies. I'm literally fighting demons as we start the show. Terrence Stamp as a wonderful actor as well. Colin Cunningham and others. I, of course, also wrote Jason Isaacs uncredited, and someone also wrote in big letters. Go ahead, Sly. Say his name for me because I will break.
Lauren Vishnick's in this movie. One of my very dear friends, Alexis, of course, Alexis Blake reads comics, one of my co-hosts over at Stark Radio, absolutely adores Goran Vishnick. And he's, wonderful actor. My first introduction to him was as Moreau in Leverage. And then Alexis made the mistake of sending me a lot of Leverage fan fiction, which all characterizes his character in a very specific way in his relationship to other characters on the show, which kind of ruined him a little bit for me. So every time I saw Goran Vishnick, I was like, gross Moreau, right? This movie redeemed him for me. It brought it back around. I get it. I see the appeal. It's the floppy hair. I love him. I love him in this. And so, yeah, major shout outs to Goran Vishnick, who's wonderful in this movie. And I just am so excited for when Alexis finally gets to Elektra on her quest to watch all of the Goran Vishnick projects, because, man, is he in this movie.
Well, I'm glad someone is a massive fan and is enjoying his presence whenever you catch him. That's awesome. Where can you stream this movie? Honestly, it's kind of hard in a lot of ways. You kind of got to catch it on live TV. It was showing on Sci-Fi Channel a couple times. I was able to watch it with the Hulu TV plan, which luckily I found someone that had that, so I could just watch it and not have to pay for it. But it was streaming through, I guess, TNT. TNT also regularly shows this film. So if TNT has a subscription service, apply to that. Or if you have the Hulu plan, of course. But JJ, can you please... You'll normally throw this to Sly, but I want to hear you go for it. Can you please tell me the plot, which is provided by IMDb?
Absolutely. This wonderful, beautiful plot. In the ultimate battle between good and evil stands a warrior who makes the choice that tips the balance. A strong, mysterious, and a deadly, sexy action heroine. A lethal synthesis of grace and power. Not long after recovering from the seemingly mortal wounds, Elektra has severed all ties with the world, living only for her next assignment. But in an unexpected turn of events, she is forced to make a decision that can take her life in a new direction, or destroy her. Key players in Elektra's journey are Stick, a blind martial arts master responsible for Elektra's resurrection, and Mark Miller and Abby Miller, a father and daughter on the run from The Hand, a powerful syndicate whose members practice the dark version of the martial art Kimaguri.
That was actually one of the better plots we've had on this show.
It was, definitely got to the point, got all the major aspects of it, added some strong words about deadly, sexy action heroine. I thought that was pretty funny. But other than that, I think overall this was less sort of like chaotic than some of the other ones for sure. Shout out to this person, Anthony Perea. This was your email was also on the IMDb. I don't know if you want that on there, but I should just message you like, hey, we read your stuff on our show, just so you know. That'd be great. Of course, the comic book characters that I at least know about are Elektra, Stick, and actually I looked up the main bad guy, Kirigi. I cannot say it.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are Typhoid, Stone, and Tattoo actual characters, or were they made up for this?
Typhoid is,
Okay.
but it's not the same version. She's a mutant actually from X-Men. Has totally different set of powers than what it does here. I'm not positive about the other ones, but they absolutely seem like stand-ins from some other elements.
Okay.
You know, Stone is just your bad guy that can apparently take a shotgun blast to the chest, and then you got that sort of like ayahuasca taking tattoo guy just sort of just there. So those are the ones I recognize. If there's anybody else in the movie, like I thought actually the name Mark Miller was sort of like a reference to Frank Miller in some way, or Mark Millar in Frank Miller, because I think they probably both worked on Daredevil at some point. But yeah, that's as far as I know specifically. But now we are done with history class, and we're going to go actually talk about the film as a whole. And I'm excited since we're going to move into our Stanley seminar. We're going to openly talk about it. I'm actually curious. Sly, what did you think of this movie?
Okay, so hear me out. This movie has a lot of problems. There's a lot of not great aspects. The fight scenes I feel like relied way too heavily on editing and effects. I get that they wanted to go for a comics accurate outfit for Elektra, but I'm not a fan. It's completely impractical for fighting. There's a lot of problems here, but I have the strong belief that any movie that is a tight 90 is made 10 times better. And this movie is a tight 90. So while it may be a meh movie, in general, it's a tight 90, which immediately brought it up to a good movie in my book.
I can't tell if that is a dig at Batman or not.
It's a dig at everything. Make movies shorter. 90 minutes is like the perfect amount of time to tell a solid 3-act story. Like
You make a really good point. It doesn't it gets in and gets out, and that might be the best thing for this movie after all, is getting in and getting out. So yeah, lots of problems. And that costume, I don't know if you can call it comic accurate when they like just went to the lingerie store and like that was in, like,
Thank you. I was gonna bring that up.
just
I was just
lingerie.
I was like, okay, it's red, but what is going on with that top? I'm scared for her moving in it. This movie's
Right?
PG-13, but I am terrified every time she fights in it.
And the lace backing was just it just
So confusing. And also I think this is a sign that it was a mid 2000s movie, because those low rise pants, it was just like you could see her hip bones in every, like that was an important part that they had to get in every shot, was that they were low rise enough that you could see her hip bones. Like that was an important thing apparently. I was like, that's a little bit much.
Yeah.
But it's only at the beginning and end of the movie, so
the rest of the time she's in normal clothing and it's fine.
No, that is true. Okay, well, I'm glad it seems that you found definitely some enjoyment. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Elektra expert. What is your thoughts on this movie, especially rewatching it this time around?
My thoughts on this movie is that I think the thing is that everyone involved knew this movie wasn't good when they were making it.
Okay.
And I think that's something that came across watching it now as an adult versus as a kid, and growing up with it. But I think it's something that if you don't really pay attention, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
There's so many fun aspects to it. I think even the CGI elements aren't bad for 2005. They held up better than I thought they would. The villain's powers are pretty interesting. Like Jennifer Garner's Elektra is captivating to watch in a weird way, because she has either no dialogue, or the dialogue she has is dumb and stupid and doesn't make any sense. But she's still really captivating, and there's a lot going on behind her eyes throughout the whole movie. And Abby, the young girl throughout the movie is like Gen Z before Gen Z existed.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, wow, this might have been influential to the way they were ahead of their time and what kids were going to be like in 10, 15 years. And so it's not a well-written movie. Like if you go in knowing, or if you address the fact that it's not a well-written movie, it's a movie you can have a lot of fun watching. And I think that is something, to its credit, that's really special, and deserves a little bit more. I think there's the obvious problems, but it's fun.
Very similar to how we talked about Daredevil, the 2003 movie. Like, it had a lot of problems. It was not great. It seemed like everybody knew it wasn't like a great movie, but it was so fun, and I got very similar vibes watching Elektra this time. It's fun, and Abby, the actor that plays Abby, did a great job. She was killing it. One thing we didn't mention: this is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's a Christmas. I didn't know that either. I did not. At first, I was like, "Is there even Christmas lights anywhere?" But no, the Miller's house has a tree and the lights are above it. So, yeah, this is like a secret Christmas movie that I didn't know. If you told me this took place in December, I wouldn't believe you. And it also looks like
Right.
I don't know where they're hiding out at the beginning. I didn't really catch it, but it looked like actually. Funny enough, Sly, it looked like the game you love. Tell Me Why. When she was on the boat, and I was just like, it looks like that area, like sort of like Wisconsin-y, like not Wisconsin. What am I talking about? Washington, Alaska, Washington, like in that area.
Yeah.
Which could make sense because they're on the run, they're hiding. So that was interesting. But yeah, I'll go ahead and go into my thoughts. I don't hate this movie. I'm not going to come in here and be like, oh my God, this was the worst thing I've ever seen. It is not. We've seen them on the show.
We've seen a lot worse.
We've seen a lot worse on this show specifically. Looking at you, Punisher. But ultimately, I would say that this is just not a movie that I feel like I would ever return to in a way where I'm like, it's not. It just is. It exists. It does the thing. You know, it exists in the same world as Daredevil, but it feels totally different. At the same time, I still do love Jennifer Garner. She definitely feels like a different character in this movie, but I think that is by design, given the fact that, you know, she was resurrected, and it's kind of connected in a similar way to, like, you know, someone that if you're coming back to life, you kind of lose something of yourself. And so I feel like the movie was sort of setting up for her to kind of gain that back in a lot of ways. But I felt like it wasn't earned in certain spots. Like there's a one spot where she's doing the sort of like meditation thing with Abby, and she just does the bah, like you're not Jennifer Gardner from 13 going on 30. You're scary Jennifer Gardner, right? Like this, I don't believe that for a second. Even though I thought it was still cute. Don't get me wrong. But overall, I would say that this movie is infinitely watchable as a tight 90, as you said, Sly. But I don't know if, like, after this movie ended, I was like, okay, I don't need to see more of this version of the character or these other things. Like, I think after watching Daredevil, I was like, I would totally watch another Daredevil movie, but I don't know if I would want to watch just a standalone Elektra film if this was the route they were going to go and the effort that they put forward. Because ultimately the movie is, we go to a nice house, to then another nice house, to another nice house in the woods, and then we go back to a dirty nice house. And that is the movie for the most part. But otherwise, you know, I think that there's so much worse things you could absolutely see. And Elektra, I think, does not deserve a lot of the hate that it gathered in terms of it being bad. I just think that it's just fine at the end of the day. Like, that's my general thoughts.
I think there's something that was very interesting about Elektra in the time period that it was released. Is that it pulls, like when you're talking about the character change from Daredevil, is that a lot of the plot of this movie and a lot of the character change was very similar to a lot of other things that were happening. Like the whole idea of the treasure, and there's a woman born to every generation who's a warrior. That's like the plot of Buffy and the Slayer. It's the same concept. Jennifer Garner being born as a prophesized warrior that was to tip the balance between good and evil is also the plot of Alias. Like, she's playing like the same thing, and all of those both of those characters die and get resurrected and have to deal with like the anger of dying and having it's like there's a lot of female-led projects during that time that were exploring the exact same type of plot. And I wonder if by 2005 people were a little bit tired of that type of story, especially when it wasn't executed all that gracefully. And also in time of like other female-led superhero projects that were coming out, like Catwoman, which was also not a great, well-written movie, but had an amazing star, and there was like a lot of things that could have gone well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that of course led to, 15 years until Marvel did another female-led superhero, and like the impact of that, which, does. Because I remember in conversations like when people were talking about we need a Black Widow movie, everyone would just point to Elektra going, no, it would suck, it wouldn't be great. And it's like, no, they just wrote Elektra bad. It doesn't mean a female superhero movie can't work. But like the repercussions of that into that rippled throughout time of this movie being bad, because it was the first female-led Marvel project. Yeah. And then forever until the next one.
You're absolutely right, and that actually feeds into when we get to pop quiz. A lot of those questions are around this movie, the fact that this was the first, and because it was the first and the way that it came out, it affected everything going forward. Things were definitely looked at as like comparing it to this, when really it's such an unfair comparison, because at the end of the day, Daredevil did not do what they wanted. They really were just trying to keep it going because they had the rights to these characters, and they just did not put the same amount of effort, and therefore that's the reason. It has nothing to do with the fact that it is a female-led film. It has nothing to do with the fact that, it may or may not have drawn money at the box office. It's simply just, they just did not make a good attempt at something. And that to me is the same problems that I've had with like, even like the DC universe. And not saying that they didn't try. I think they tried in that instance. This one, I could say they did not, in my opinion. But there are people that are in the project still make it fun, right? Jennifer Garner, even when she has those moments of being like stone-faced, like assassin, still kind of fun in some aspects, like when she like goes to whisper and all of a sudden is over here, like such a bizarre cut. The editing in this movie as an editor drove me nuts. Oh man.
I think it's also strange, like the shift of like her power set. Yeah. From like what she could do in Daredevil to what she could do now. And they explain it as like it's this form of martial arts, of course. But like there's this huge power change that happens, and they never really specify. Like they give a list of like you can bring people back from the dead, you can see the future, you can do this, you can do that. But her just like disappearing and then reappearing behind a person. It's like what power is that? You have super. It's like the editing of like the Vampire Diary vampire movement just happening every 20 seconds.
I have to bring this up, and hopefully maybe you can give me some information on this. So this movie could or could not exist in the Daredevil movie, because there's almost no mention of Daredevil at all, other than a cute little nod of a picture in the background of something, but or the fact that she's wearing the outfit from the movie, which is cool. I love that outfit. I wish it showed back up. But otherwise, okay, from my understanding, Elektra clearly has been training and doing this since she was a child, I assume. And her father definitely was pushing her, so I'm curious how that's connected. But then we get to Daredevil, and then you're right. It's seeming like she has no powers, or just a very athletically crazy, cool lady. But I just love the difference of like, here's this lady like getting a coffee at a coffee shop and going her business to like stone cold assassin at the end. But anyways, so then Daredevil happens. She dies. She gets brought back to life. Now the opening scenes, is that taking place after Daredevil, where she gets kicked out? And is she learning this stuff then? Like, that's why I'm so confused on like when it takes place. Yeah. She get kicked out and then goes to New York and has a coffee and then meets Daredevil. Like, that's why I'm wondering, like, when does that all take place?
I think everything takes place after after she dies in Daredevil.
I think so as well.
She's a treasure that died,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that,
Oh, it's so Buffy. Oh my god!
it's-
Oh my god! It is so Buffy.
she's brought back to life, and then she trains in her martial arts, and then she goes on that. Then she goes to being the assassin.
Yes.
But everything in Daredevil takes place before. Everything in Elektra takes place after Daredevil.
Yes.
Every single, except for like when she's a kid and everything.
That makes so much more sense. Because I thought the training with Stick was pre New York.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's why I was confused. But like, if that's like post resurrection, okay, I follow a little better now.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that's one of the things about the non-linear storytelling of this movie, that they didn't really have a plan. They just realized they had to explain something in a moment and had to just like go back.
Yeah,
and like
I love a non-linear story. This is not a well-executed non-linear story.
And I also think this is something that's interesting in regards to Elektra, is that it is a sequel to Daredevil in a way.
Yeah.
But that's not how this movie was like marketed for a while.
No.
They were like focused, like distance it from Daredevil as much as we can until like the last possible moment. But like it was mostly connected to like they were trying to connect it to like the X-Men universe that was happening, and then go to like, and they were like, this is also kind of like Daredevil because Daredevil didn't perform like they wanted it to, so they're trying to connect it to something more successful.
Yeah.
But so I think that's also very interesting about like how little they connect it to the Daredevil movie, even though it's the same actress, the same character in a way. The events directly relate, and it's like that might have been helpful for people going in if they would have just seeing this character in this like black silvery leather outfit being trying to be resurrected by EMTs doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know what happened beforehand.
No, especially in the indications that she's like well dead at that point. But yeah.
I will say, jumping a little bit into our next point, how this compares to the MCU. Yes. This movie made me give the TV show Daredevil a little more grace, because watching this, I was like, oh, this is where the very bad wielding of the size comes from. It's the fighting style is very similar to what we see in the Daredevil show, which is not good and not how you use that weapon at all. But now looking at it, I can go, oh, they got that from the Elektra movie, and that was the bad example that they brought into this TV show. That makes so much more sense.
In terms of you talking about Elektra and comparing it to the MCU counterpart, where are the sort of like strengths and follies of those characters? I mean, obviously, I agree with you that I think that people thought of that season 2 of Daredevil is not the strongest because it's split down the half between being a Punisher show and then all of a sudden Elektra and the hand stuff. For that character, do you think that they are hold a weight to Jennifer Gardner's interpretation, or do you think that other character is way better? Because I mean, to me, it's a landslide personally to the Netflix show.
Very different.
Yeah,
that's the thing. The characterization of these characters are very different. In this movie, she's very much like, you know, coming back from the dead, training, becoming this assassin, and then her arc is like learning to, you know, accept that she is good and she's worthy, right?
Yeah.
Is the kind of arc we get here. In the show, she's very much understands who she is. She's like, I am a weapon. I was trained as a weapon. My one job is to fight in this war, and that's all there is to me. And I'm interacting with this character who has a little bit of this in him,
Yeah.
but not as much as I do. And so I'm going to, try to help him become more like me. And that's her motivations, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people talk shit about Elektra in the Daredevil show. And y'all knock it off. Because I think she's done pretty well in the show. She's
Mhm.
very, like, as a character, she's very strong in who she is and has no qualms with that. And her arc in that show is just like her committing to the fact that this is who she is and this is how she was trained and raised.
Yeah.
And that's just a part of life. And a lot of people give her a lot of shit for being a weapon, that we don't necessarily see people have the same problems with other characters that are very much in the same position. I I think they're both good. I don't think they're great. And I don't think I can necessarily say one's better than the other because they're doing such different things
Mhm.
with the idea of who this character is and how they react to the world around them.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I'm
JJ.
definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely with Sly on this. There's like they're very two different. They're just two different characters,
Yeah.
and I think also they had different. Like there's over a decade of time in between these two characters being presented, and like what was required of a female character in 2005
Mhm.
is different than what is required of a female character in 2016, 2017. I don't remember when that second season dropped.
Yeah.
Somewhere
I-
around there.
Yeah, and so like you were saying is like she's more comfortable in herself, and it's just like she kind of could be like a 2005 leading action female hero has to have like there was like you have to have a certain amount of quote unquote likability or quote
Mhm.
unquote there had to be you still had to be a certain
Appealing.
type appealing, a certain type of
Yeah,
femininity, and I think like in a way, not to saying that those restrictions didn't in some way still apply to the Elektra in Daredevil, but there was a much different type of environment surrounding what a female character could be like, and I think that influenced a lot of the way that those characters came about and how their stories were constructed. So in how they're doing different things, I think that is something to like take into consideration about like what Jennifer Garner is doing with the character during the time. Which I think one of the lovely things about Jennifer Garner is she's just letting herself be the likable factor about her.
Mhm.
Is Jennifer Garner she just is one of those people that exudes warmth even when she's like stone cold assassin. And she doesn't do anything else to make it happen. She's just like, I'm gonna do what I do, and I'm gonna let everything else happen naturally. Which is what like one of the things that makes her performance work in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. And then later on in the Daredevil show, she gets to have a little bit more fun and gets to play with different levels. She also has a lot more time, a tight
true.
90
That
minutes
is true.
versus several. So I think like
Yeah.
in the comparing of them, it's like there's some things environment to take in place.
Mhm.
No, that's
sure.
absolutely worthy of discussion and consideration. And how much I think, even though we only get the tight 90 and we also get the few moments in Daredevil, she still leaves an impression in my mind, and I still think about her fighting the sandbags and throwing that. Like I still think about that. I still think about the rain scene in Daredevil, like specifically their moments together.
God.
Like her coming down in that dress looked incredible. But ultimately, yeah, I will say that hypothetical, no spoilers for Multiverse of Madness, but a portal opens up, all right? And Jennifer Gardner's Elektra comes throwing out, are you like going wild this year?
Oh yeah.
And
Yes,
honestly,
absolutely.
Let's see
honestly,
it.
me too. But I want the Daredevil original outfit, not the red one. I want the Daredevil original one. Yeah.
Can we get Bullseye?
Oh, please. Please.
That's all I want.
Disney, you have the technology. Just bring them back to exactly how they looked. It'd be perfect.
I would go absolutely nuts if both of those characters come back. I also know, like, Jennifer Garner has, like, came out and said she hated filming Elektra.
She did.
She thought it was a dumb movie.
Yes.
She is very vocal about that. She wasn't as vocal about it during Daredevil, about, like, how she felt about Elektra's character. She was way more positive during Daredevil, but, like, she did not want to film that movie. She was only contractually obligated to, and she made it known. She didn't do the thing of, like, letting other people say that for you. She flat out said it herself. So I think if she did come back as Elektra in Multiverse of Madness, I think I would freak out, because I think it'd be one of the cameos that would truly surprise me as well. It would be the one that I was just like, it's not Captain Carter coming in, which is, like, kind of teased. It's not anyone from, like, it's not Chris Evans is from Fantastic Four.
Or Deadpool.
Or any of those. All of those makes, like, I could see that happening. Mm-hmm. But Jennifer Garner coming back as Elektra is something that I just cannot picture in my mind happening in any way, shape, or form. So her appearing on that screen in whatever outfit as Elektra, I would be up in my seat cheering. Just absolutely flabbergasted, and I might get kicked out of the theater.
I'm high-fiving people as we walk down the aisle. Like, we did it! We did it! Oh, she's in a better movie. Yes, no, that is pretty awesome. Any more thoughts before we move on to our next class? Any other? You know what? Actually, we didn't even talk about the bad guys, because I don't care. They are terrible. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the bad guys and his goons? I'm gonna throw out the Sly first. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is Typhoid is hot and the Kiss of Death was very hot.
That's how they marketed the movie, Sly. That was the whole purpose of the movie. Gay, she's a assassin, and there's a lesbian kiss in this movie. Ooh, like that was the marketing.
I love that. It was hot. I appreciate it.
But it wasn't for the gays. It was for boys, and it was bad.
I'm reclaiming it for the gays.
Perfect.
We are reclaiming the Kiss of Death. It is now for the gays only.
There you go. I accept. That's awesome.
Other than that, I really like the most compelling part of this movie is not the villains. They're just there kind of as a plot device to move the story along, and they're just so insignificant.
Yeah, 100%.
They're just there to make them move from place to place.
Yeah, I kept accidentally calling the main bad guy Nobu, who is the main bad guy in the Daredevil show. So that's how inconsequential I thought he was. Because I mean, he's cool, and I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff. I think he's Storm Shadow in the G.I. Joe movie, I think. But he's a cool dude. Like, he's a cool guy. Like, he does cool things. He does that cool like you're saying, that shifting thing that he does that like shifts around the room, which seems to be his only power. I thought it was interesting, the sort of reveal of this creature, that it turns into a ninja, then it turns into him. However, I'm like, this didn't have to be in the movie at all. Like, this is just an additional thing you threw in there for drama that didn't need to be there. Like, and also I'm like, he looks younger than Jennifer Garner, in my opinion. That's why I'm like, how is that possible? Considering that the guy's father is also in the movie, but either way. What are your thoughts of actually the Hand as well? I didn't even know the Hand existed in films before the Daredevil show, so this is actually kind of cool. I didn't know that that building looks awesome, and I'm mad that it's not in the Daredevil show, because it's very clearly inspired by, and this came way later, but there's a comic book called Shadowland where there's literally a building that looks like that, and it's sort of like climbing the building. It's so cool. So what are your general thoughts on just their existence in this film, just simply to be there to be killed off? Is that simply it?
I don't know if JJ has any better thoughts than I do. I thought the way they were introduced with the like opening monologue or whatever, was pretty good. I just couldn't get past them. When they died, they disappeared in the like green smoke,
They're
and
like
that
farts.
it really took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't take them seriously after that.
I laughed pretty hard when it happened.
See, I think my thought is that there could have been a very interesting dichotomy that they tried but wasn't successful between, because one of the things in this movie that I think is an untapped potential is the relationship between children and fathers. And especially since every young girl is described as a motherless daughter, and like the impact that mother's life has on the daughter's upbringing and how she views the world, and the way that it changes because she is being raised by just a father.
Yeah.
And also the main villain, Kirigi, I think his name's Kirigi, his journey of his relationship with his father and him wanting to take over the hand. And I thought that could have been a really interesting parallel counter story that they tried, but in the getting it down to 90 minutes or in pressure from the producers for rewrites or things, I think that was probably the goal of this movie, was to tell the twin story of these two people and their relationship with their father. It just kind of obviously fell with every draft.
Yes.
And so I think the hand could have been really, really cool in this movie if they would have leaned into the more generational story that was existing there, and also with the choice to make Typhoid another treasure who fell to the hand.
Yeah.
And very interesting.
Weird choice.
It's a weird choice and interesting choice. I think it's something that could have had a lot of story that was able to be made there. I just don't think that I think every draft of that script just made things fall apart. As it had many rewrites. Because I also liked the villains. I like dumb villains. Like, I like plot device villains. I think they can be something that everyone loves, a really well-written, well-constructed character villain. But sometimes just having a guy with a bunch of tattoos that come to life is really cool. Like, that's just cool. And so...
That's the thing, was Tattoo was way more compelling to me than Kirigi. Like...
yeah. That's very fair. Very fair.
Yeah, to bounce off that point, I do agree that I do love dumb villains, especially like sort of like having these little crazy powers. But I do think that the central villain has to be interesting, and I just didn't think that the main one here was. I think I agree with you. I think Tattoo was probably the more interesting one out of all of them, and he probably could have had an interesting backstory of how he got this stuff. But ultimately, like for instance, I'll think about like movies like if you ever seen the movie The Crow. The Crow has like one main bad guy. That the Crow, for some reason, he's the hard boss, right? He's the one, but he's very fascinating and interesting. But he has all these little cronies and all these little things that the Crow has to get to that person. And I felt that at the end of the day, the main bad guy's power felt like a side guy's power. I think Tattoo was more interesting. Of like he could have had all these arsenal and maybe even morphed into thing. All that to me felt like it should have been in a different direction. But yeah, overall, I think sadly the bad guys are wasted in this film. But I digress.
There's also there's a lot of them, because there's a council, there's the dad, there's Kirigi, there's then all of his underlings, and they all are trying to give them time. There's also Lucius Malfoy at the beginning of the movie.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. Now that you said that. Lucius Malfoy is in this movie, and he's uncredited apparently, because I tried to look it up, and he said, it was uncredited. Why is he in this movie? I tried to look up the answer. I couldn't find it. He was just there, and I don't understand it, because he is definitely doing Harry Potter at that point.
It seems to me, like, I have no idea if this is true, but it gives me the feeling of when actors lose bets with their friends, other actors, directors, and producers, and so they end up in projects as like small side parts because they like just lost a bet. Like I think that happened on Friends.
Yeah.
Once I think it's happened on it's happened in a lot of TV shows and movies because these are people too. It very much feels like he lost a bet and had to do this movie. Either that or his character was supposed to be huge in the movie. And then wild. Just wasn't.
It's wild because he's given like this monologue and like he's sort of filling in the sort of, you know, the gaps the movie is telling us about Elektra. And I was like, okay, cool. He's going to be a main component of this movie, or he's maybe actually going to team up with her. I don't really understand. I don't really know. But no, he just gets that little whispering in his ear, and then all of a sudden she's 20 feet over there and throws aside. Like that's literally what happens. And yeah, shout out to Jason Isaac for being here. He has one of the most gorgeous eyes in the world I've ever seen. Shout out to him.
It's a great shot. Like,
yeah.
This movie, there's some really great cinematography in this movie, and some of it is just that beginning shot of Jason Isaac sitting there and having his like bourbon in his hand, and he's just like monologuing. There's something good about that shot.
He accepts his fate. Yeah, for sure. The only other major grievances I probably have in the movie was is it McCabe? Was his name, I believe? I really liked him. I just think he was underutilized because I thought the movie was setting up to the fact that, you know, she's not following order, not doing the thing that they normally do, and therefore he'd be the one that would betray her. But no, he just sort of just gets beheaded.
Except the fact that she was not following through on assignments.
Yeah, just like, cool, get my life in danger, why don't you? Yeah, go to my house. Okay, great. I'm also not going to go in the tunnel with you, and I'm going to reveal your location. It was wild. I don't know.
It was a choice.
I think they tried to fix it with the throwaway line a little bit later about how McCabe was actually like under Stick and was doing everything for Stick. And I was like, it's a quick throwaway line. Yeah. And it's like supposed to like cover everything. And it's like, no, this just didn't work. And you're trying to save it. I think that could have been interesting if like Stick, which that's another like character that exists in other in the Daredevil show, and the different versions of those two characters.
I would say very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
But I think that also again might have fallen away with a version of the script, because I feel like he was supposed to like be the undercover support character always for like forever, and then instead of actually doing it, they like just had a throwaway line.
Yeah, that definitely seems more like it. And then of course, to me, I do love that Elektra and me have the same impulse of like, oh, you're told to not do anything for a weird time. Like, I'm losing my mind. I gotta get out of here. What's happening? I just thought that it was weird that it was a part of the movie in a way of like, okay, you go sit in this mansion for a bit, and then I think it's like 5 minutes. It feels like 10 minutes, but it's like maybe like 5 minutes of her just doing nothing for the most part.
I mean, that's when we first sorry, I'm going to transition the topic to the mention of OCD.
That is the first mention. That is true.
Because this is the first time we kind of see those tendencies in this character. And so I watched this movie, and one of my really good friends has OCD, and we talk about it a lot, about how it manifests in everybody very differently, and everybody experiences very different symptoms. And I was like, what do you look for when there's an explicit mention of OCD to say if this is like a good or a bad portrayal? And her response is, it's never explicitly mentioned. And it's like, it's always just, you see those traits and characteristics and you go, oh, like that's an OCD trait. And so the fact that it was mentioned here, I think, was really interesting. I know I've talked a lot about like explicit versus implicit representation. And so seeing something that's usually only seen as implicit representation being explicitly mentioned, I'm going to say is a good thing it puts it out there. It kind of normalizes it. I didn't notice any like negative characteristics of how it's represented here. So for a 2005 movie, like, dang, nice job.
Yeah, because it's
I
definitely.
also
Go ahead. Here.
I also like how they also implied that Abby also had the same tendencies. I think there's a little something to say that like maybe they were, whether or not that was like implying that all treasures had OCD, or and like the difference of like something like having a neurotypical
Mario,
yeah.
are you hearing that?
Yeah, sorry, Jay. Your sound is coming crackly. Can you speak?
Hello?
Perfect.
Is it better now?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
better.
I think that it's interesting whether they were trying to imply that being neurodivergent is part of the treasure aspect. There's some things that could be explored there, or whether or not they were just trying to mirror the two characters and show that they had things that they could relate with each other with.
Yeah.
It's like it could be either or.
Could be. I think it definitely illustrated when Abby changes her hair color, and it looks very much like a young version of her. So there definitely just seems. I'll hope, in my opinion, it was just like, oh, they're just trying to show how similar they are, not necessarily like this is everything, or you will have this if you were this.
Yeah, I just think it could have gone either way. I also don't think it's necessarily 2005. That was explicitly stating OCD, and having that moment is just like, wow, okay, because there's not a lot of superheroes that show movies and shows that do that have like explicitly state, oh.
And it's usually like detective characters, and it's used as like a superpower, like they notice everything. And in here it was, just like simple habit. And yeah, like it was, sorry, not a habit, a repetitive motion, and it tied into like the training and like casing areas and spatial awareness. But you also see that like she struggles if she can't count through her steps, and so like you get to see both sides of the coin here, and it's not just being like, oh, this is like my superpower or whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's pretty much, I think, all my major notes for this. I think if we're ready, we can move on to our next class.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that has been our Stanley seminar. We are now moving straight into drama class, where we get to reenact some of our favorite scenes in our maybe favorite movies. So let's go ahead and move on. I picked a few. I don't know if you guys added any more, or if there's any others you want to add.
I added one.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pass it on to y'all too. Who wants to be DeMarco?
Oh, I want to be DeMarco. I'm sorry.
Okay. JJ,
I would love to. Give me Elektra. I would love to do it.
Okay. Have it away. Action.
All right. I have to get into like my concentration.
Ma.
I guess it's all true. The red outfit, the knives. What happens now? You just kill me? Straight out? Just go?
Don't worry. That's not that bad.
How do you know?
I died once.
Chills.
I love her ability to just like always be speaking on the breath.
Yeah.
There's a couple 2000s actresses just like speaking on the breath. I don't know how they do it, but it's delicious.
Every time. I talked about that. Oh, I don't remember. It might have been Daredevil. I don't remember what episode I talked about it. How they all have that like same cadence and like the breathy like accent. It's just
I think
so
the
iconic for the time.
The master of it is in Smallville, the Lana Lang. Master of it. The entire run of that like 9-10 season show, however long that show went on, just always speaking on the breath. If you want the example, Lana Lang in Smallville. That's how you do it.
Thank you, Kristen Keurig, for that. Thank you. How about this? JJ, you be Elektra, I'll be Stick.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Second Life isn't like the first one, is it?
Sometimes it's even better. That's my Terrence Stamp impression. It's terrible.
So good.
Incredible.
That whole conversation was just like so well done.
Yeah. There was I don't know if I actually had it in this, but there was a line. I gotta remember what it was, but there was something that was so biting and so funny and made me laugh. And I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think it was between Elektra and Stick. And yeah, their dynamic was a lot of fun. Shout out to Terrence Stamp. We didn't talk a lot about him, but he's an actor that's been around for decades, all the way from General Zod to many other things. But obviously, it being 2006, it is played by a sighted actor, as is obviously the newest one. But yeah, still. Okay, moving on. Who wants to be Abby and who wants to be Elektra?
Slide, do you want to take a stab at Elektra, or I could do it again?
You're Elektra's
JJ's been rocking Elektra. I think she's
it,
stuck with it. I'm sorry. I'll take Abby.
Okay.
So you really kill people for a living?
Yeah,
Why?
it's what I'm good at.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
And they're just in the car and she's like chewing her gum.
So yeah, I love the directness in which you, of course, have now done Jennifer Garner's Elektra. It actually fits quite perfectly. So I find that to be pretty funny. Of course, that includes drama class. Now we move on to a little bit of music class, which superheroes of this era are usually remembered for their original soundtracks. They usually hold like one big banger, but do those bangers hang up today? Now, Sly, you commonly say on this show that if it's a good score and you don't notice it, then it's probably a good score, right? I'm going to say I noticed nothing, and this score was terrible, and I heard absolutely nothing. Not only that, there's no Evanescence song in the movie. There is an Evanescence song in the actual soundtrack, which this is the part that drives me nuts. Is the soundtrack actually is kind of cool. It has the Donnas, Everything Is Wrong on it. It has Taking Back Sunday, Your Own Disaster, Amy Lee, Brave No More. There's actually Hawthorne Heights is on the soundtrack. Like there's actually like some solid stuff on here. Switchfoot is even on here. Jet. All of these bands.
I will say, I noticed the score. And it was bad. I often say, you're completely correct. A hallmark of a good score is that you don't notice it and you don't remember it. You just remember the emotions it evokes. I noticed the score. It was not great.
Yeah, this is probably the one thing. Like, if I'm gonna add songs from like the soundtrack to our playlist here, it would be stuff that's not in the movie, and I feel that's disingenuous. So I will not be adding any tracks for this movie. I don't actually, to be honest with everyone, because of the whole Spotify thing, I don't think I've added tracks to the last one. But we'll see if this playlist thing continues. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this? The fact that this is a scoreless film, as far as I'm concerned.
No, what I think about this film is that it started filming in May 2004 and was released in January 2005.
Yeah.
As a quick turnaround for a film.
That is.
And I think, it shows in every aspect, including the score. Because it seems like they just went in, like, someone had, like, all of these, like, I'm going to make this sound, and, like, this is an example of, like, it could be like this. And it's like really rough and it's in the studio for 30 seconds. And the guy was just like, I don't have time for anything else. Just put that in. And that was it. And then there were some song choices here and there. They were like, it's like the feel of this song, or like kind of like this. Like, and they were like, yeah, just do it. And it's like, that wasn't like a final, this was like an array of, no, just put that one. I don't really care.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I think it's to the movie's detriment, but also it's kind of, when you get those bad sounds coming in, it just kind of makes the bad aspect of the movie enjoyable in a way. I don't know. I think that's what I think.
No, for sure. I'm actually trying my best right now to scroll through IMDb and find the person that did the score, and I can't find anyone. I have a music department. That's about it. I'm trying to find anything else.
I don't think they want their name attached. I think this is the thing they took off their resume pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who knows? This might be like the most proud thing they ever did.
Christoph Beck.
Christoph Beck? Okay. Does it have a list of any of his previous credits or future credits? I'm sure this person is a professional. Oh, I found it. Yeah, okay. Christoph Beck.
Frozen.
Okay. And WandaVision looks like. Hold on. And Hawkeye. Okay. I feel bad.
Okay.
I feel bad too. I apologize.
Ant-Man and the Wasp?
All right. Okay. The Hangover Part 3?
Maybe this was his first project. Maybe this was his learning experience.
I'm going to look.
He had 2 projects before this. The Tuxedo in 2002 and Under the Tuscan Sun in 2003. And then Elektra.
JJ, what if I told you that he also apparently has done score for Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel?
This is Buffy the Vampire Slayer out through and through. Oh my.
And A Christmas Story. It says here, A Christmas Story, music by. All right. That includes music room. We learned a lot in the last few seconds. And so we're actually going to learn a little bit more because it is finally my favorite part of the show, quiz time, where we can do pop quizzing. We're going to do some pop quiz. We have 2 contestants this time, and these questions are pretty easy / hard only because they're not really about the movie. So we're going to go through and let's just jump to the question we always ask every episode. Is Stan Lee in this movie? I'll throw it to Sly first.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I forgot to look for him, but I didn't see him.
What scene do you think you would find him if he was in this movie?
I feel like he might have been like in like one of the training scenes. If they put him in the background, I mean,
Terrence Stamp is there. To be fair, I was making fun of you for a second, but Terrence Stamp is there, so yeah, I can see another old white guy just sitting there.
Exactly.
That's fair. JJ, do you think?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. JJ, do you think he's in this movie, and where would he be if he was?
I don't think he's in this movie. I have never caught him in my watches. I also didn't start looking for his cameos until way later in life. But I think if he's anywhere, he's in the pool hall scene.
Yeah, that would probably be where I would say. He'd be in the pool hall, like sitting down or something like that. Give me a drink. Whatever.
Great for him to be playing the pinball machine, and Abby walks up and knocks him out of the way to play it or something, or sits and talks to him for a second.
Puts a quarter on it, like it's my turn. Yeah.
That would have been fantastic, but it's not there. I don't think it's there.
No, Stan Lee is not in this movie, so you both get a point for that. Sadly, still, even though he was in Daredevil, so I don't know if they're continuity wise, it would make sense the fact that he'd be in New York and wherever they are. But no, clearly not. By the way, why is there a Daredevil picture on that mural in wherever they are in Alaska? I don't even know. It wasn't explicitly Daredevil, but it's Daredevil. Let's be honest. Baby Daredevil. Yeah.
See, I can never follow. I think at some points they're supposed to be in Seattle, and then some places because they're supposed to be in the upper Northwest, and that's the biggest city. Unless they're in Chicago. I know Daredevil was in San Francisco at one point, so maybe they were in San Francisco in that moment. I don't know.
I don't know. I just thought I found that pretty hilarious that there's this clear nod to finally Daredevil, and it's this weird image in the background, and that is really it. Nothing else. Not really the events are mentioned other than the fact she died. That's literally it. And the outfit. That's the only other connection. But moving on to the next question, of course, Elektra has one of the lowest scores for a Marvel film of all time. What is that score? What do you think that number is if you don't already know it? I'm going to start with Sly. JJ could know it. I'm gonna start with you, Sly.
I
Out of
know
100%.
we've seen movies in the 50s already. So it has to be lower than that. So
Yeah, it's
I would
considered the
say like
lowest.
high 30s to low 40s. Maybe?
JJ, do you want to take a guess?
If this is like the Rotten Tomatoes score,
It is.
isn't it like
Oh,
10,
probably.
11, 12% or something like that? Like it's real low. Like it's not normal low.
Pick it's not normal though, you're right. Pick one of those.
10, 11, 12. Middle. Gonna go 11. Like it's low.
It is in fact, since you are the closest, you get I'm giving you the point for it, but yes, it is in fact 10%.
10%?
Jesus
Oh, God.
Christ.
No.
Next to Captain America, the like Italian one, and then something else. Oh, Josh Trank's Fantastic Four film is also down there as well. So I will not be using those as examples. But yeah, it's pretty. I don't think it's a 10. If I had to be honest with you, I don't think it's a 10. It may be in the 50s or 60s, sure. But 10's a little egregious, especially with, like I said, there's so many movies. If anything, Sly, can you look up what the Punisher's Rotten Tomato score is? I'm very curious.
Oh yeah, I'll look that up for you.
Yeah. I'll look up Blade. I'll look up Blade Trinity too, because I know you liked it as more than I did, but still.
I loved Blade Trinity.
25. 25.
Punisher, that god awful movie, is a 29 on Rotten Tomatoes. How? I would put Blade Trinity leagues above that.
That's funny. That is really funny.
Jesus Christ.
There was one reviewer or one director said that this movie ruined Jennifer Garner's career, which isn't true because Jennifer Garner had an extensive career after this movie.
Yes.
Right.
Like they were not kind to this movie during the time. Like I said, I'm a little worried when I say I'm a fan of this movie out in public because people love to hate it.
It's crazy because I just looked up because I know that her career for me exploded after 13 going on 30. So to see that, okay, so Daredevil was 2003. That movie was 2004, 13 on 30, which to me is where she blows up. But then to say her career ends the year later with this is like, all right, whatever you say, dude. Like, whatever. But sadly, Elektra released in January, which is usually referred to as the dump month for releases. This was probably before pandemic and even a little bit before that. Some movies were coming out in January that are pretty solid. What place do you think it landed on the first week of box office? Was it A, number 1, 2, number 2, 3, number 3, and 4, number 5? I'm going to go with Sly first.
I have no idea. I'm gonna go 3 because 4 is not an option, and I feel like I feel like it would be at least top 3. If this was a question, it wouldn't be number 5. So it's at least 3 or higher. And I don't want it to be higher than a 3, so I'm gonna stick with 3.
JJ.
I'm trying to think. I was like, I know that it's box office, like, it barely recouped, like, or it just recouped, like, it didn't actually make any money, or, like, it's around the same. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 5, but I think I'm going to go with 3 as well. I think I'm going to go with number 3.
Okay. It was 5. And I actually didn't even crack the top 3 in January, which is a month that has nothing but trash in it. So the fact that it was number 5, pretty crazy. And I think the stats that you're trying to say was it didn't make money theatrically. It only finally got it back when DVDs came out, and even that was sort of hard, if I understand.
I was gonna say, it was like, I felt like I was the only person who had that DVD. I was like, I have only ever seen the copy that I owned. I have never seen it ever again.
So there's actually 2 DVDs. There is this movie, and there's a director's cut. This is a bonus question for both of you. How many extra, by the way, there's a director's cut for Daredevil. There's 30 minutes extra in Daredevil that actually get added to the film that makes substantial changes. One day we might revisit it because I actually like Daredevil. How long do you think the director's cut is for Elektra? I'll throw it to JJ first.
I think it's only like it's less than 5 minutes longer. It's pretty much the same. I think it's less than 5.
Okay.
So I don't know where else. I think it's like less than 5 minutes longer. It's not longer.
Yeah. So where would your guess be with that
I'm
information?
gonna go somewhere in between. It's definitely not 30. I'm gonna go like 10 to 15 minutes longer.
It is 3 minutes longer.
3 minutes. Incredible.
I was gonna say, I was like, it is not. It is the same
What was
movie.
the one scene that they added?
I didn't even bother looking because when I heard that stat, it was like, what changes? Like, what could you possibly say? Like, I have no. Yeah, no, I didn't even bother looking.
Did they like maybe add like a Daredevil quote to it?
No,
or
so actually,
something?
there is a deleted scene. Well, actually, I don't know if it exists because I read two things. Originally, Ben Affleck was supposed to reprise his role because, just like Jennifer Gardner, was obligated to do it because of the contract stuff. But they ended up straight up cutting it out. I think it was right in the script. There is, when I was looking up the quotes at IMDb, because that's where I pull, where we drama class, one of them was just for the deleted scene, and it was Ben's voice. And then her responding to it was like, come back to me. It was like one of those like weird, like, it's funny. You know what's hilarious is a little trivia. It's the same kind of scene that they cut out of Terminator 2, which Terminator 2 has a scene of Sarah Connor talking to Kyle Reese, even though he's gone or not there. And it's so weird, the fact that they have a very similar scene together. Clearly, the impact of Terminator 2 has impacted all of us. But yeah, only 3 minutes. So that's kind of ridiculous. And then, of course, I wrote, is there any references to the Daredevil in this movie? It's just the little baby in the background and the fact that she has the outfit for like 10 seconds. Other than that, totally nothing really there. That concludes Pop Quiz. So far, I think, JJ, I'm going to declare you the winner. I think you were the closest if I had to take a guess.
Absolutely.
I spent way too much time with this movie.
Well, your prize later is just to plug all your stuff at the end of the show. So there you go. There's no
Incredible.
So now that all the classes are reaching its end and we're going straight to our homeroom, are there any final thoughts you want to leave about this movie and talk about what you see of this character going in the future? If this character has a future, given this month, which by the time this is recording, I'm not mistaken, MCU Netflix shows are now coming to Disney Plus, making them, in my opinion, inarguably canon to the MCU. But anyways, Sly, I'll start with you first. What are your final thoughts on this film?
No, throw it to JJ first.
JJ, what are your thoughts on this film?
Final thoughts on this film. I think this is a bad movie that gets too much hate. I think that it is something that if you, like many things, if you go in and you don't take it seriously, you will have a lot of fun. Also, I think it is something to consider in like when you think about taking into regard like female-led superhero movies. This is an important milestone for a lot of reasons. Even though it was poorly written, and it was the entire creative team is all men. It was all writers, directors, cinematographers, it's all men. That's very clear in the movie. It's an important milestone in the story about how female-led superhero movies occurred. Also, all of the red hints throughout the movie, this is my final thought, always remind me of Carmen Sandiego. She's a villain traversing the world with a red scarf fluttering behind her. She is Carmen Sandiego. And so Buffy, Carmen Sandiego, combined into this movie.
Are you telling me the secret plot to Carmen Sandiego is not the fact that she's an international thief and likes to travel the world, but she's actually also an assassin that these kids are trying to track down with their computer games?
Absolutely.
That's
I
incredible.
think she was doing all of that just to steal some paintings. No, she had a secret agenda the whole time.
While she was stealing this wonderful painting, the Pope is dead over here. I wonder how that happened. Yes, that is hilarious. Sly, what are your final thoughts on your first time watching Elektra?
It is well known that I love bad movies. Like, they're some of my favorite movies. It's a running gag that Jupiter Ascending is my favorite movie. Like, we know this, it's very well established. I love bad movies. And this was a bad movie that I loved. Would I recommend it? Yes. I think everybody should watch it at least once. Sit down with it. Like JJ said, it's important historically. It did a lot of things setting up the future of the landscape of female superheroes. And if you have like any interest in the like MCU TV shows, the Daredevils, etc., I think you should watch this once because there was a lot of inspiration that I saw after watching this that was drawn into the shows later. I loved this. Like, I will watch this movie again. I really enjoyed my time with it. But it is a bad movie, and I love it because it's a bad movie. And so take my love and appreciation with a grain of salt.
Sly, hearing you say that makes me so happy. So happy.
You've recruited me to the dark side. I'm on the train with you. Elektra is a fun movie.
Well, this is my stop. I will say that overall, I think that the movie has given a bad rap for so long, and I don't think it deserves any of that animosity that people have. And I feel like either they heard something or they watched it once when they were kids and were just like, this is the worst thing ever. This is, obviously, I'm like, no, not even close. We've had very well, super hero movies literally for the last several decades. And to say that this is anywhere near that list, I still think you're crazy. Suicide Squad still.
Punisher is 10 times worse.
Punisher is way worse.
Saying it now.
Way worse than this film. And honestly, I own Punisher on 4K Blu-ray and I hate it. I'd rather own this. I would rather buy a box set of this than anything else. Will I watch this movie again in the near future? Not unless I was forced to. But it doesn't deserve any of the hate whatsoever. And that's overall my thoughts on Elektra. Well, we did it. We're done with school. We're going home now. So let's go ahead before we do.
We have homework.
Yeah, we have. Oh, I was going to say at the very end, but yeah, the next homework for next week is in fact that we're going to be finally joining. We're still in this Fox universe. We're going to be talking about Fantastic Four, and I'm so goddamn excited because I actually have fond memories of these movies, and they're also bad. So I'm excited for my enjoyment of this. So, and Sly, you said you've never seen any of the Fantastic Four?
Absolutely not.
And you still don't know who's in them?
I remember when Fanforstic came out.
Got it.
But I didn't see it. I remember the reaction to it. I think I know one person who's in these movies, and I don't know anybody else.
Perfect.
And I haven't looked it up. You told me not to look at anything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into this completely no knowledge.
I think you actually referenced the third one, which is the whole of the cast, but you're right. The fact that you don't know who's in these ones, I'm totally cool with because there are some surprises on who is cast, and I'm very excited for you to see it, especially if you've ever seen a TV show called Charmed. Anyways, yes, this is the only reason why I love that movie.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, it's such a dumb reason. Anyways, JJ, where can people find you on the net?
Yeah, you can find me at JJBA Watch on TikTok and on Twitter, where I talk about MCU. I talk about a lot of other fandoms. I talk about Supernatural, Merlin. I talk about 911 as Season 5 Part 2 is coming out. You're going to find me tweeting.
Coming soon.
I'll be tweeting out my thoughts as that happens. and just a lot of fandom stuff, a lot of fan fiction stuff, a lot of fandom history, and all of the thoughts on all of the thoughts. Yes.
Fantastic. Actually, Sly, real quick, I saw a trailer finally for 911. I've never seen it before. I saw a trailer for it, and I recognized a bunch of people. I was like, "Oh, they're on the show."
Angela Bassett, Peter Krause.
Yes.
Anyways, sorry, I couldn't.
The principal from Spider-Man.
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh yeah, Kenneth
Jennifer
Choi.
Love Hewitt's on it.
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Where's she been?
Jennifer
Barely
Love
on 911.
Hewitt.
Okay.
Currently on maternity leave, but it's fine.
She's back. She's back.
But she's back.
She's back.
Yeah, Kenneth Choi's in it. He's great.
That's awesome.
Love what he's doing. Oh yeah, 911, great. People watch it. I yell about it all the time.
Well, Sly, where can we find you?
Of course. Yeah, you can find me everywhere on the internet at SlyClanMC. You can find me on Point in Progress. You can find me, as well as JJ, in our comment section while we're doing live videos over at Stark Radio, where we're doing lots of cool things. Very exciting. We got some stuff in the works. We've been teasing it for about a month now. I can't wait. We're so close to sharing it with all of you. So yeah, check out that. And if you want to find any updates for like whenever I'm doing anything, you can usually find it on my Instagram stories. That's where I've been most active if you want to keep up with all the things I'm doing. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Someone who has been in that comment section of Stark Radio, I have been waiting for these updates for like a month, and it's just the anticipation has been building. So yeah, very excited for that.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, you can find me on too many shows because now I have a third one coming out called Model Citizens Show, where it's my old show. It's actually the first podcast I really did that we were doing on a regular basis with my friends over there who I teamed up with when I worked at DualShockers. They actually the ones that brought me on. And we always loved, we hang out, we have a Discord. We had a Discord for a lot of things happened, and we did it all remotely. And so we're just bringing it back, and we're doing so much better production value because I learned so much more in those last few years. And it's just five now, actually, friends just goofing off and having a good time and just being friends. Like that's all it ever was, and that's all it'll ever be. Sort of like a chronologizing our lives as we go along while we talk about mascots, serial mascots fighting. So that's a fun show. So yeah, check it out. That's also on Point in Progress. You can find me at Point in Progress in the Point in Progress podcast. You can also find me, and this will come out before it happens. I am now in charge of the Tech Raptor video team. I have been promoted recently, and I don't know what my title is because they told me I could pick it, and I'm very excited to decide what it is. I'm sticking with Grand Admiral Video Person, but we'll figure it out later. But yeah, so you can find me over there at Tech Raptor. I do TikTok videos and all over the place on the internet at Night Mute City as my Twitter. And with that, class is dismissed.
I'm Mark Miller. We're in the little cabin 2 houses down.
Her name's Elektra, Dad.
Like the tragedy. Your parents must have had a sense of humor.
Not really. Where's her mother?
She died a couple of years ago.
My mother died when I was young.
The target package has arrived.
I'm not gonna do it.
We'll just send somebody else, eh?
There'll be more coming.
We have failed to solve the problem.
The task is yours. Completed.
Why did you really save them, Elektra? Some kind of down payment on your sins?
She saved my life and my daughter's. That's enough for me.
Now, Elektra, the time has come for you to decide.
They're here. So you really used to kill people. It's what I'm good at.